welcome back to Pop Culture. Today we're going to be discussing the short film Eye Contact. In my opinion, the short film Eye Contact deserves 3 out of 5 stars. Eye Contact is a short film about a woman running through the woods onto a beach, and she runs up the steps of a lighthouse. Once she's at the top of the lighthouse, she looks down at the trail she was just running on, and she notices that there's a shadowy figure down there where she was just running, and she looks and stares, almost as if making eye contact, hence the name Eye Contact, with the shadowy figure. She stares for a little bit, and then she runs back down the steps. Eventually, when she gets back to the trail she was running on, where the shadowy figure was standing, she looks back up at the lighthouse where she was just standing, and sees the shadowy figure there, and stares long but less time than before at the shadowy figure, making less eye contact than she did before. After seeing the figure at the lighthouse where she was just standing, she turns around and starts jogging back on the trail she entered from. She continues on the trail for a couple minutes, and then we see the figure behind her when the camera flashes back to behind her. And the music speeds up, camera hands back to her, and she continues running even faster this time. She eventually comes to a fork in the road, and there is a wooden fence that she actually bumps into after she tries to run away from this shadow again. The woman continues on her run through the wooden forest trail, and eventually, as we continue to see the shadowy figure behind her more and more, closer and closer, the music speeds up along with her, and we see her come out onto a road. So she's no longer in the woods, she's out on a road now, a back road. And she looks to her left and she sees the figure. She looks to her right and she sees the figure. Eventually, she looks to her left again and she sees the figure up close in her face. She screams. This is the only time there's any actual audible noise coming from a person. She screams and runs the opposite direction, and we see her again when she comes out onto a populated street road. We see this woman now on a street with houses on it, specifically her house. She runs up the sidewalk, stumbles and falls, stands up, walks to the door, opens the screen door, struggles to get the key into the door to open it, and eventually unlocks the door, goes into her house, closes and locks her door behind her. The entire time she's doing this, the shadowy figure is behind her, and as she's in her house, she reaches to get the phone, dial 911, and the shadowy figure appears again behind her. She drops the phone and runs, and that is the end of the film. The words Eye Contact appear at the end of, up on the screen, and that is the end of the movie. Since there's no talking in this film, obviously the producers, directors, and everyone working to make this thing happen had to use other tools to create suspense and drama in this film, because nobody is talking. So one of the biggest, most common used source of suspense in this film anyways is the audio, the music, the soundtrack, the things that you hear. For example, when the woman screams, this is the only time anything comes out of her mouth in this entire film, and it is the only time that you will hear a scream. There's no other screaming. So obviously when the audience and people watching this hear her scream, they know that she is very afraid and that they should feel afraid too. It creates a feeling of suspense and anxiety for the viewers and the people watching. Another example of a great tool used to create suspense is the music. Music is key to making a film amazing. It's hard to make a good movie, whether a short film or a full movie, with no soundtrack. If you have a soundtrack, it causes emotion, it can create so many different feelings for the people watching the movie. It can help portray the feelings of the people acting in the movie, and many other things. In this short film, they use music mostly to indicate how the woman is feeling. As she's running, the music increases each time she looks back and sees the shadowy figure and runs faster and faster. The music gets faster and faster. Each time the camera cuts from her to looking at the shadowy figure, the music gets louder and sharper. So it causes a sense of anxiety for the people watching, because you could assume as that woman looks back and sees this figure, she's feeling what the music is saying. What the music says is how she's feeling. So she feels this sharp anxiety when she looks back and sees the shadowy figure. The music, camera angles, and context in this film help to create suspense very well. However, a few more things added would have made this film even better. For example, had there maybe been a third character, a character running with the woman on the trail, and after the second time that we see the shadowy figure, this character disappears and it's just the woman, not only would the woman appear and be more anxious, the audience watching would also wonder, A, where this other character went, and B, if they're okay, like what happened to them. So I feel like adding another character, maybe even a dog, had you had a dog running with the woman and then you hear the dog yelp and the dog is no longer there, the audience would completely wonder what happened to the dog, because generally people feel more for animals in movies than they do for people, because animals are perceived as more innocent and compared to people. One of the only strengths this film has is the soundtrack. Without the soundtrack, the film would just be a woman running through the woods. The only thing you would hear is her heavy breathing, her running and stepping on things, her scream, the things she interacts with, like opening the door when she falls, closing the door, locking the door, picking up the phone, dropping the phone, and maybe her falling to the floor at the end of the film. Other than that, it's completely reliant on the soundtrack itself to give the feeling of suspense and anxiety that you're looking for when you're watching a film like this. Other than the short film's soundtrack, the camera angles are also very important to this. I would definitely say, though, that the soundtrack is key to this film and is one of the only strengths of this film. That concludes the review of Eye Contact, the short film. This concludes my review of Eye Contact, a short film.